Hello and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we're so happy you can join us today. Well, it is officially the summer season at the Jersey Shore. So what type of impact is inflation having on tourism? Business expert Carl Gould is standing by to discuss how higher prices could impact shore travel. First, though, mental health issues are taking a toll on students, parents, and teachers in our state and around the country. So is enough being done to help? Joining me now is Ronald Shalouzian, the Executive Director of the New Jersey think tank Newark Trust for Education. Ronald, it's good to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, let's start by talking about the overall challenges that students, teachers, parents are dealing with when it comes to mental health. What are we seeing right now here in our state?
Sure. So when I look at some of the data that comes out, it's challenging, right? We know that about 1 in 6 young people have experienced major depressive episodes over the course of the past years, and we know that suicide has risen, and it's actually in 2020 was the second leading cause of death among young people 10 to 24. And just in day-to-day life, relationship skills, we see some of the short-temperedness, right? The kind of dealing with regular situations. So it is impacting the day-to-day interactions of young people on a continuum from smaller to really issues that should be focused on and worked with a professional.
Yeah, and it's probably sometimes difficult to ascertain what is an untreated mental health issue and what might even be understandable behavior considering the circumstances we've all lived through for the past 3 years. So can you talk a little bit about that impact of
Sure.
untreated mental health in the classroom?
Mhm. Well, I mean, I'll start by saying that even pre-COVID, there was a large population, some say up to 50% of the population, who had some level of mental disorder that wasn't treated. And so, COVID in some ways just created a situation where, you know, we got out of practice with some things, right? We got out of practice with how to interact with other people. We got out of practice with how we saw ourselves or how other people see us, and so it creates a new situation for us in which now we need to be looking at young people and providing opportunities for them really to express where they are and what they're thinking and how they're feeling, and then look for some signs. And I think the traditional signs still hold, right? Changes in behavior is a really key one. If suddenly your child starts to act differently than they have, and that's consistent and over time, that's important to note. Changes in academic performance is another one that's really critical to look at. And then we see social isolation or withdrawal, right? The inability or the non-desire to participate in social activities. And again, if it's a one-time thing, that's different. But if it is consistent and you see this withdrawal, then that's something that really we would recommend that you look for and bring your child into some screening to see if this is something that needs longer treatment.
Right, and so much was exacerbated during the pandemic for people who might have been experiencing some of that social anxiety. Well, then they, were able to communicate on Zoom or online, which can be positive for some and not so positive. But it certainly exacerbated so many issues that were already brewing. Correct?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot from kids and try to put myself into kids' positions. And each kid had a very different experience during COVID, right? We had families that really clamped down. They were very protective, really closed off from the rest of the world, as was important and necessary for their own mental well-being at that time. But they came, kids went through 2 years of really being told, be careful, don't get too close to someone, don't go physically near someone, put a mask on, all of these things. And then there were other families who maybe were not as stringent on those rules. And so as we transitioned out of that, you have to imagine that a child who is 5, 6, 7, or 8 years old, 2 years is a quarter of their life. For a quarter of their life, they've been told not to go near someone, and now suddenly they're placed into a situation where they're expected to play and to be social and to interact. And so that might be difficult for some kids. And again, we really recommend here at the Trust schools pay attention to and integrate social emotional development into the day-to-day activities, into all of the curricular areas, allowing a kid the space to talk about, what this makes me feel, what it makes me think about, what questions I might have, how do I engage in this decision making right now, what are the key pieces of information I need and that you can provide for me that's going to help me through this transition.
Sometimes one of the most difficult things is just knowing where to go for help. So let's talk a little bit about these solutions. The state is implementing a new system to address mental health in schools. They're setting up mental health hubs across the state. Can you talk a little bit about this and what you think needs to be done so when there is a question or a feeling a student may not know what to do, that they are able to access those resources?
Right. And, I think that this is an idea that really demands a lot of attention and paying attention to and looking at and evaluating. We start our work thinking about the closest to the child, right? So the school, the teacher, the parent, right? Those elements that are closest to the child, and really helping the adults in that situation understand, right? Understand the notion of social emotional development, understand the signs that they need to look for in order to identify a young person that might be facing some struggles and challenges, and then accessing local resources that are aligned with things like our students' cultural backgrounds, aligned with our parents' priorities. So that local component for us is very, very important. And I hope that as the state looks at the hubs, kind of spoken hub model, right, that they really do reach out to local communities and local care providers and create the bridges necessary so that those local providers have the resources they need in order to well serve the families, but that families still have access to those local providers, and that it doesn't become a step removed from their day-to-day experiences and from their priorities.
Right, because the mental health issues, they're going to be different for each individual. So tailoring that response to students who are facing very difficult challenges, it is challenging. And do you think that the state is on the right track to ensure the resources are there to address those different challenges?
We did recommend a halt, a hiatus to really think through. I think initially they were thinking about trying to implement this within a year. I mean, at the beginning of the next school year, and I think that they've postponed that, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But we did recommend that there be a postponement so that all of the kind of nitty gritty, right? The nuts and bolts of it could be well thought out, could be planned for, right? And so if this plan demanded, for example, a transition for families to stop working with one particular provider and begin working with another, those kinds of issues needed to be thought about. So I think as long as the those who are putting together the plan are actually engaging local communities in conversation, local school districts in conversation about what is and is not working. I do think it's important for there to be measurement and accountability, right? It is a lot of money that is being thought of. And so therefore, to have systems in place where data is being collected, right? And obviously there are privacy issues, and this isn't about the particular treatment, but it's about access, and it's about whether or not through this access, families are actually getting the resources that they ultimately need. If we pay attention to those things, then the model can work. If we don't pay attention to those things, I think there will be a lot of disruption.
Right. As we head into the summer months, do you have advice for how parents can help their children over the summer and even prepare for next year? Because if you're not in the right mental place, no matter how bright you might be, learning is going to be a challenge. So we have to have students in a place where they feel safe, they feel heard. And summertime, there's always kind of a summer, they call a summer slide for students who may not be in the extended school year program. So advice or thoughts on that?
I think that, I go back to basics, real basics. I think kids are kids and need time to breathe and to play and to interact, and really helping kids find those opportunities where they could be themselves, be with other kids, form friendships, regain the kind of confidence to form those friendships. I think those are really critical. Having said that, I think it is really incumbent on the adults to think about how they integrate opportunities for young people to learn. At the Trust, we're particularly interested in literacy and getting to proficiency in literacy. And so thinking about those elements, right? Storytelling, which helps both the social emotional development of young people as well as the literacy development, right? The ability to ask questions, again, that goes into both sectors. So really thinking about a young person's social emotional development. What can we do in order to get young people into a space where they're comfortable, they feel comfortable, they feel safe, they feel heard, and all of those things are happening. And in that space, help them to read, to tell stories, to ask questions, to just enjoy, to be able to live another person's life through this reading experience, and potentially then bring up questions. I'm old enough to have gone as a principal through the 9/11, when 9/11 struck and post 9/11. And one of the things that was really fascinating to me was there was such an emphasis on arts and healing through the arts, including writing, including painting, including drama. And I think focusing in on opportunities like that the arts provide for young people, and that to develop these skills, both socio-emotional literacy skills, is something that we can really focus on and hopefully implement for our young people to grow and develop well.
Yeah, and I love hearing about other ways of engaging a student, because some are naturally more inclined to the arts, some are more adapt to science. And one of the things that I want to get in before we close out is something we said on camera before we started recording here. And I was talking about, oh my gosh, these kids have lost 2 years. And you said there might be a better way to frame that. So I'll let you end on that.
Sure. And I think this is super important. Our kids didn't lose 2 years. They lived those 2 years. They were alive. They were with their families. They were in homes. So they had a different experience than we anticipated they were going to have. But somehow when we say that kids lost those 2 years, we devalue those things that they actually experienced. And so I really like to think about, and speaking to young people, yeah, what did you do during those 2 years, and what did you learn? And I understand that those might be different than what other people expected you to learn, but did you explore technology? Did you explore hobbies? Did you do different types of reading? Did you find that friends in different countries because you were able to do that, right? So to really validate those experiences and validate the 2 years that our young people lived, and let them know that there were elements of that helped them to develop, and they are the people who they are today. And then use those strengths really to build and bridges to the things that we hoped they would have learned but didn't have the opportunity to learn due to that time, right? And I think if we frame it that way, especially if you're a 15, 16, 17-year-old, I mean, 2 years is a substantial amount of time. And if you're framing it from you lost it, it becomes problematic for them. So I really do think you live that life, and you should really grab onto those things that you learned, and build off of those things that you learned in a positive way, because that's the way I think that we accelerate their learning, and we help them to grow into strong adults.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something that I'm going to take away from this. Instead of saying you lost, you experienced something different. So thank you for sharing that and teaching me a little something as well. And we thank you for all the work that you do and for taking time to talk to us today.
Well, thank you so much. As you can tell, this is a really important topic to us here at the Trust. And feel free to jump onto our website at newyorktrust.org. There are lots of materials on there about the work that we do and this particular topic.
Right? So go to resources. You can go to the website and find more information there. Ronald, thank you so much.
Thank you.
How is inflation impacting tourism across our state? Will we see fewer people travel down the shore this year? Joining me to talk about this and more is business expert and owner of Seven Stage Advisors, Carl Gould. Good to see you, Carl.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, as they say, let's start at the very beginning. Inflation. So let's define it and talk about how it is impacting travel in and out of New Jersey.
Sure. Inflation essentially is everything costs a little bit more than it used to. And, with the average household income being around $70,000, you tack on 7% inflation, and you have the average family is not able to spend $5,000 to $6,000 that they normally would have been otherwise.
Yeah, yeah. Well, people need a break, and it doesn't have to be a luxury trip. $5,000, $7,000. It doesn't have to be $700 because sometimes the money just isn't there. So what can businesses do to try and attract foot traffic for those overnight and week-long stays down at the shore?
Well, there's always a silver lining in every problem. And one of the silver linings that inflation brings to us is because people have less discretionary income, they are more likely to do a staycation, meaning they're going to vacation close to home. And so they can't go to Disney World or they can't fly somewhere because the cost of travel and accommodation is so high. So they tend to stay local. They call it the small indulgence. And so if you're a business owner and you have any sort of tourist attraction or Airbnb, or you have a business down by the boardwalk or any one of the lakes or near the Delaware Water Gap, this could potentially be good news for you. And the strategy that you would use in a time like this is what we would call bundling. In other words, you would take multiple products and services and put them together in one discounted price. So you don't just sell them the T-shirt. You take the T-shirt and the baseball cap, you wrap it in a rubber band, and instead of it being $35 between the two, it's $29.95. So you would bundle experiences, products, and services that would be attractive to the New Jersey resident.
Yeah, and that's what people want, an experience. They don't necessarily need that luxury, but what can families do now, right? There's still time to plan if people haven't done it, to plan a trip, to plan that experience. And if there just isn't any money, what can they do to start planning, to try and to do something?
Yeah, so if you are going to any one of the major attractions, whether it's the amusement park or it is to the beach, the shore, or you're going to any one of the major areas, look at off-peak experiences. There are fireworks on other weekends than the 4th of July. So if you're looking to go to a festival, pick an off-peak time. Go on a Monday or a Tuesday, or find out what's going during the week. New Jersey is famous for its street fairs. They're amazing, and there are plenty of those to do all throughout the year. If you are going to go down to the beach during the week, Monday through Thursday especially, it's very quiet at the beach. The traffic is mostly on the weekends. So if you can arrange your travel and your vacation time and your leisure time around the off-peak times, you will save money.
Yeah, you had me at going on the weekday, if for nothing else to avoid the traffic, right?
That's right.
You talked about your street fairs and such. There really is a lot to gain by just taking the time to explore your own community. It's helping local businesses, and it's helpful to stay close to home for people trying to make ends meet. But ultimately, families are hurting, so are businesses. The cost of goods and services are up. So what do they do?
Right. And so, you would now need to pick and choose what is still expensive, right? And so fuel is still expensive. Eggs are still expensive. There are a few products and services that are still expensive. So here, let's be a little bit more discretionary. Let's build our vacation around the items that are less expensive, because there are some things that are driving up the cost, but there are some things that, because the supply chain has gotten a little bit better, are now a little bit less expensive. So day trips are very, very good right now. If you can avoid doing overnights at, at places that are, having their peak during the summer, that would be very good for you. There are lighthouse tours. There are hiking challenges all throughout the state. There are plenty of things to do within the state, and New Jersey is great because everything's close to each other.
Yeah. Well, what about businesses? Are they, for their strategy is because their costs are going up as well. Are businesses? Do you think they're going to be passing the cost down to consumers, or saying, you know what, let's maybe take a little hit and offer more of these bundles, like you mentioned, and we'll get more people, and then make it up that way? It seems like a difficult position for businesses too.
It is a bit of a tricky challenge if you're a business, because this is your peak time. During the summer, New Jersey has a tremendous amount of seasonal businesses that come out and are doing the fairs and are the summer or the lake region attractions. And so they have to make their money during this time. And so it is the repeat visit that's going to help. And so when you sell something to a consumer, you have to market and have expense and sales expense in order to do that. And now to sell the second thing, there is a marketing and sales expense. However, if you go back to the bundling that I mentioned, where you can sell the multiple things, you eliminate the sales and marketing expense from that second product. The next thing that you do is, when somebody leaves and they're exiting from your attraction or your place of business, you give them a coupon for savings when they come back, right? Encourage that second visit, encourage that third visit. And the other thing that you can do is, if you are in a community where there are other businesses, team up with your non-competitive businesses and offer coupons and discounts to your neighbor business as they leave. So if I go into your breakfast restaurant and luncheonette that's not open for dinner, as I leave, you give me a coupon to come back for breakfast there, but you also give me a coupon to go to the dinner restaurant that's right next door, and they'll do the same. And so that's a cooperative way where, by lowering our sales and marketing expense, we can still do well even by offering that discount.
And it's a win-win, because businesses are helping other businesses. You're keeping people there to do more and to spend more time.
Yeah, and we forget how much we have around us in New Jersey, because we drive by it all the time, or we don't have to get on a plane, and we don't have to drive overnight or drive for hours and hours or cross state lines. We forget a lot of the things that we have very locally. I challenge anyone that in the state, have they walked all the hiking trails? We have the Appalachian Trail that has 77 miles that comes through our state. Have you seen all of the beaches? Not so sure you probably have.
Is there anything that you're looking at, or that consumers should be looking at as a gauge?
Yeah, so I'm looking at short-term rental prices, and I'm looking at fuel costs, because those are the things that are going to most impact your travel. If you're going to get on a plane, those fuel costs are going to drive the price of that flight up. If short-term rental prices are high and remain high, that's going to determine how many nights you stay. And so how far you travel, how long you stay, will be impacted by those two numbers. And that's what I'm looking at. The good news is short-term rentals are still high. They're going to remain high. That's not the good news. The news is the short-term rentals are high and going to stay high because it's seasonal and it's peak season. But fuel costs are coming down.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's good news for those who rent. That they're getting more. They're making more that way.
If you're a business,
Yeah.
it is good news if you are a short-term renter,
Yeah,
and because you can market outside the state of New Jersey, you can market to Eastern Pennsylvania, Southern Upstate New York, to the city, and Pennsylvania and Delaware. So you can attract those that are within driving distance of our attractions, Philadelphia, for example, as well, to enjoy your business during these times as well. So it doesn't have to be just inside the state. There's also opportunities outside the state. Again, within driving distance, I would say within 3 hours, within a tank of gas.
Yeah.
Within a tank of gas, you could that is your market to be to be trying to attract and influence to come to your location for the summer.
Yeah, I mean, again, so many people are struggling just to make ends meet. Just some final thoughts on maybe it's not going to happen for some people, but they want to look to next year. But again, they're kind of operating in an emergency, just cover their bases mode. Any advice? Final thoughts here.
Yeah. So final thoughts is, they say it takes a village. And so vacations don't have to be taken just by yourself. There are other ways and there, other ways to enjoy yourself in groups. So sometimes you can partner up with another family or a group of friends and you can split the costs. So the key is to be creative. There's so much to do and it's so close by there still will be viable options regardless of who you are.
Yeah, yeah. And again, exploring your own backyard. Sometimes I live in Lambertville, right? And I just recently, there was Shadfest, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this place and that place. I'm coming back because I forgot about this new ice cream store that opened. Exploring your own backyard is just as important. Yeah.
We live in a great backyard.
Yeah, we do. We do. Well, Cargill, thank you so much for taking the time. Good to see you.
It's my pleasure. Enjoy your summer.
Oh, you too. You too. And we thank you for joining us on New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.